have a new doctrine. It's promulgated by Oded Yinon. They say the new doctrine of the state of Israel is we have to destroy all of our enemies. Oded Yinon's plan for the 1980s says the only way that Israel can be safe is if we destroy all of our neighbors. It says that even though our neighbors are strong militarily and our borders are under threat, he says our neighbors are actually weak because they're based on diversity. Oded Yinon says that Lebanon has 5 different nations inside of it. It has a Christian nation, a Shiite nation, a Druze nation, all kinds of different ethnicities living inside. It says Syria has Alawites in the west, Sunnis everywhere else, Druze in the south. It says that Egypt has a big Coptic Christian population, a big Muslim population. It says that Iraq has the Kurds and the Sunnis and the Shiites. Iran has a lot of Turks and Persians and other groups living inside of it. So in the late 1970s, when the Likud party comes to power after the failures of the left-wing party to anticipate the surprise attack, they say it's time to go on the offensive and blow up all these different countries. In 1978, Israel brokers a peace agreement with Egypt. Israel gives them the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt signs a treaty with Israel. Egypt becomes the first country to normalize relations with Israel. And that is the year, by the way, that Egypt becomes one of the biggest recipients of U.S. foreign aid. And so does Israel. 1978 is the Camp David Accords. They make this treaty. It's ratified in 79. It's in that year that Israel becomes the number 1 recipient of foreign aid. Egypt becomes number 2. And they both receive massive amounts of money to make this deal. In 1978, Israel goes to war in Lebanon. In 1979, there is an Islamic revolution in Iran. The Ayatollah and the Green Revolution, the Islamic Revolution, overthrows the Shah. They hold the Americans hostage in the embassy, and they declare a revolutionary Shiite caliphate. The Israelis are perturbed by this. In 1982, they invade Lebanon because Palestinians keep doing cross-border raids in Israel. Israel invades Lebanon as part of their strategy to go on the offensive. When they invade Lebanon, Iran comes all the way over and starts training up Lebanese militias, Shiite militias in the south. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the guarantor of the revolution, comes to Lebanon and starts training them up. That becomes Hezbollah. In 1981, Iraq is developing a nuclear weapon. They get a reactor from France. They start building up a nuclear weapons program. In 1981, Israel launches a strike on it. They bomb the reactor. Iraq and Iran begin a 10-year war in the 1980s. Israel and the United States back both sides. Israel predominantly backs Iran because they view Saddam Hussein in Iraq as the bigger threat, because he's developing a nuclear weapon. In 1990, Iraq invades Kuwait. Iraq threatens to invade Saudi Arabia. It launches missiles at Israel. George Bush invades Iraq, and he does not topple the government of Saddam Hussein. He oversees the destruction of their nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons programs. He demilitarizes Iraq, its missiles, its navy, but he leaves the regime intact. In response to this, Israel almost kills George Bush because Israel wants the United States to topple the Saddam Hussein regime. 1994, Israel makes peace with Jordan. Jordan becomes the second country to normalize relations with Israel. Jordan becomes the 3rd largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid. In 1996, a new doctrine is put out. This one is by Richard Pearl, Douglas Faith, David Wormser. And this is coordinated by the Bibi Netanyahu government in Israel. They call it the Clean Break Memo. They say that for too long, the Israeli government is not right-wing enough. They say even though we're on the offensive, they say we're still not safe. They say we gave up the Sinai Peninsula for peace with Egypt. They said we gave up the West Bank for peace with Jordan. They say we don't want to give up Golan for peace with Syria. We can't keep giving up land in exchange for peace with the Palestinians and our neighbors. They say, so we need a clean break with the past. And in order to secure our northern border, because Egypt and Jordan are already taken care of, they say we need to knock out Saddam Hussein in Iraq, we need to take out Syria, and then we need to take out Iran. We need to take out Iraq because Saddam Hussein is too belligerent. We need to take out Syria because they remain fundamentally at war with us and challenging us. And we need to take out Iran because they have trained up Hezbollah in Lebanon and they're sponsoring some of our adversaries. 2003, the Israelis that drafted that report come into the George W. Bush administration. After 9/11, they fabricate intelligence that Saddam Hussein was involved in 9/11 and other terrorist plots. They say that Saddam Hussein is once again building up his nuclear arsenal like they did in 91. Their program, which was not fully destroyed in 1990, they claim, we need to go in. The United States invades Iraq and topples the government. But Israel wants more. Israel wants us to invade every country. In 2003, Libya voluntarily denuclearizes. Libya sees what has happened to Iraq. Libya makes an agreement with the United States. We'll give up our nuclear program. You can inspect it. Just don't invade us. In 2006, Netanyahu is calling for war in Iran, for war in Syria. In 2007, Israel bombs Syria's nuclear program because they believe they're getting a weapon. In 2011, the Arab Spring starts in Tunisia. Pro-democracy, pro-liberal protests. They spread all across northern Africa. They spread into Libya, to Egypt, then into Syria and elsewhere in the broader Middle East. They bring down Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. He's replaced by the Muslim Brotherhood. They threaten to topple Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. NATO airstrikes led by the United States finish the job. They topple Libya's government. They kill Muammar Gaddafi. In Syria, protests lead to major opposition movements against the regime of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. With the Syrian regime and the Iraqi regime weakened, and the United States withdrawing from Iraq in 2011, suddenly there's a radical Islamist group that spawns in the middle of Iraq and Syria. It's called ISIS. And they start ripping through Iraq, ripping through Syria. Now everybody says the United States has to remain in the Middle East. 2013, there's allegations that Assad is using chemical weapons. They say we have to intervene and overthrow the government. Obama declines, but he does eventually get involved in 2014 and 2015. We start bombing pro-government forces, and we're bombing ISIS. This is the history of the Middle East. Israel's at war with all of its neighbors. All of its neighbors start to die. There's war in Lebanon. There's war in Iraq. The government of Libya is toppled. The government of Egypt is toppled. The government of Syria is toppled. Egypt and Jordan are forced to make peace. They become U.S. puppet states. This is the history of the Middle East. Now, why does Iraq and Syria and Libya and even Iran at one point, why do they have nuclear programs? Because Israel, at the same time, is pursuing regime change against all these different countries. Israel's allied with the United States, and one after the other, the dominoes are falling. There's a civil war in Somalia. There's a civil war in Sudan, which splits them into two countries. Now there's a civil war in Sudan. Everywhere they look, they see the governments falling to civil war, regime change, or U.S. occupation. So they want to nuclearize. Iraq gets a nuclear program, they get bombed. The United States comes in and dismantles it, they get invaded anyway. They didn't even have nukes. Libya gives up their nukes, they get bombed and replaced anyway. Syria's program gets bombed and they give it up, they get regime changed anyway. This is why Iran wants a bomb. And of course, Israel is protected from all of these conflicts because they're the only ones that have the bomb. They've got the United States in their pocket, they've got the neocons in the administration. They're protected from any kind of accountability. They've got two aces in the hole. This is why Iran has a nuclear program. And this is why over the past 20 years, Iran has been building up its deterrent capability. They have a latent nuclear weapons program, and they have built up a proxy network in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, inside Yemen. That is to protect themselves from Israel. Israel could always bomb them. The United States could always bomb them. They could always do regime change and invade. Having a proxy network ensures that Iran has a second strike capability to hit Israel back. Having a nuclear arsenal makes it more complicated and more tricky and serves as a form of a deterrent for the United States getting involved unnecessarily. Then you have the October 7th attacks. That's in response to the new dynamic. After Israel's carried out all these wars, the United States is fatigued. Iran has spread its influence across the region. Israel recognizes it's time now to end the Middle Eastern conflict once and for all. They say that we've pacified Libya. Libya is a non-factor. They're in the middle of a civil war. Sudan is in the middle of a civil war. Somalia is in a civil war. Yemen is in a civil war. Egypt and Jordan have made peace with Israel. Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Morocco have made treaties with Israel in the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia is talking about making peace with Israel. Iraq was invaded by the United States and is now friendly. Syria is divided and weakened entirely. The same is true of Lebanon. The only remaining adversary at the time of October 7th in 2023 is Iran and all of its proxies in southern Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq, and the Assad regime, which is not totally defeated in Syria. So what happens on October 7th? Israel is attacked by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. They see it coming. They let it happen anyway. Hamas is sponsored by Iran. Israel uses this as a pretext to declare war against Iran and all of its proxies. Israel moves its troops to the north with southern Lebanon to confront Hezbollah. And they begin their blockade, their bombing campaign and invasion of Gaza. They're killing thousands of people. They're destroying all the infrastructure. In response to this barbaric campaign, all of Iran's proxies are declaring Israel to defend Palestine. Hezbollah is bombing Israel in the north. The Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria are bombing Israel from the east. And the Houthis are bombing Israel from the south, and they're bombing commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Israel uses this as an opportunity to systematically destroy all of the proxies. First, they defeat Hamas. By May of 2024, Hamas is utterly defeated. They have no major strongholds. Then Israel moves their forces to the north. In October of 2024, they detonate explosive pagers that are held by the leadership of Hezbollah. They conduct 1,000 airstrikes inside southern Lebanon, and then they invade southern Lebanon and they hold it. In December 2024, they carry out airstrikes against Syria, and a Turkish-Israeli U.S.-backed group from Aleppo begins to invade Syria. First, they launch strikes on Aleppo, then they move further south to Hama, then Homs, then Damascus. They overthrow the government. Israel immediately bombs all of Syria's navy, its air defenses, its air force, everything. Hamas is neutralized. Hezbollah is neutralized. The Syrian government is overthrown. Its equipment is destroyed. And the new Syrian regime kicks out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Israel invades the Golan and takes the south of Syria. In March and April of 2025, Trump is elected. Trump launches a major air campaign against the Houthis in Yemen and significantly degrades them, bombs their port, bombs their capital. This paves the way for the confrontation with Iran. In April 2025, Trump announces he's negotiating with Iran. He says they have 60 days to give up their nuclear program. Iran says, we're not giving up all of our enrichment capability. We don't trust you. We don't trust Israel. Israel's chomping at the bit to get the United States to back an attack on Iran. Last Thursday, Israel attacks Iran's nuclear facilities, but says we can't do it alone. Missiles are raining down on them. They say, we need help. We're not safe. We're imperiled. We need the United States to help. Tonight, the United States carries out its attacks on Iran. And as we talked about earlier tonight and throughout the week, the only way this can end is in regime change in Iran. The regime that was put up in 79, that created that proxy network, the nuclear program, it's going to be gone. And when that is finished, either sometime this year or next, you can see how the entire Middle East, from Morocco all the way through to Egypt, from Somalia to Sudan, from Yemen all the way up to Syria, from Israel to Iran, the entire Middle East will be under the thumb. The entire Middle East and Northern Africa will be under the thumb of Israel. How? The new Syrian government is talking about normalizing ties with Israel. There will be a puppet regime in Iran. Without Iran backing Hezbollah, Hezbollah will collapse, and there'll be a friendly regime in Lebanon. Iraq was already occupied by the United States. Jordan and Egypt made peace 20 and 50 years ago. Libya has been cut apart by civil war, just like Sudan, just like Somalia. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the Emirates all made peace with the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia is the next shoe to drop. Without the support of Iran, the Houthis in Yemen will collapse. There'll be a friendly regime there too. Turkey is a NATO member and a longtime ally of Israel. So is Azerbaijan. The entire Middle East will fall to Israel. And then what will happen is this. The United States wants to pivot to the Pacific to confront China. We recognize that all the action in the 21st century is going to happen here, not here. All the action in the 21st century is going to be India, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, the Asian tigers. And to some extent, it's going to be in Central Africa because that's where the critical minerals are. To some extent, it'll be in South and Central America. That's where a trade war is happening. We want to leave the Middle East. How do we leave the Middle East? We have to hand off our responsibilities to our allies and partners. So we're going to arm Israel and Saudi Arabia to the teeth. And we're going to give Israel and Saudi Arabia control over the entire region. But Saudi Arabia is a very fragile state. It's a country of foreign workers. It's a country of a restive population. It's a fragile, hereditary monarchy from 100 years ago. Saudi Arabia could never resist Israel, even if they wanted to. If Israel could take out Iran, they could take out any one of these fragile Gulf monarchies, any one of these countries. That means that Israel will dominate the entire region. And that means that all the trade that goes through the Red Sea, all the trade that goes through the Persian Gulf, all of the Belt and Road Initiative, ports and highways and rail, all of the India, Middle East, Europe corridor infrastructure, it will all go through a region controlled by Israel. All the trade from Africa, Asia, and Europe that has to go through water or land routes in this region, it's going to be going over Israeli soil. It's all going to be going over Israeli clay. That's their end game. That's the big picture. They want to dominate the region, profit from all the trade. They will profit from China and the United States, from BRICS and the Abraham Alliance. That is the next phase of development. That's how they go from not even a country surrounded by enemies to every country has been destroyed and pacified to total regional hegemony over the Middle East. And then they want to ditch the United States. Then they want to say, we don't want your foreign aid anymore. It gives you too much leverage over us. We want to conduct our own independent foreign policy. And that means we could do whatever we want. We can hedge and work with China if we want. We can work with Russia. We can work with whoever we want. And that's how we were used to give birth to a rival power. That's how we were used, like a parasite does, to give birth to a rival entity.